I've been riding electric vehicles for a while, and I find that I mostly gravitate towards the scooters. It was the first one I ever owned. I have 3 of them. I love riding those things all summer long. So when the guys over at Ecotric offered me this thing, the Cheetah, I was excited because, hey, more electric vehicles, right? But I confess I wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much as I have. I thought I was gonna ride it for a couple of days, get the review out, and then just sell it. Because I figured I have enough already, right? That was completely wrong. I fell in love with this thing. I can all go back to my pre-e-bike days, and I think you would probably love it too. Let's talk about the Cheetah. So, right out of the box, this thing was not as complicated to put together as I thought. I'm not exactly an avid bike rider, or at least I wasn't until I got this thing, so I was a little unsure how I would go about putting it together. Thankfully, it wasn't that complicated. There's instructions that guide you along, and I was able to, with some help from my stepfather, thanks Tulio, I was able to put this thing together in about 30 minutes. That is what it looks like when it's assembled in its full glory. Like I said, wasn't all that complicated to put together. It looks like a small foldable bike. You've seen those around, I'm sure. This baby right here has 20-inch solid fat tires, which make quick work of most of the environments I rode it through. It has a 48-volt battery, and it caps out at 500 watt for the single motor in the back hub. Now, 500 watt is a little bit low. By the way, is it 500 watt or 500 watts? Because in the reviews that I've seen for anything that cites watts, people kind of go back. Anyway, it has 5 levels of pedal assist, and this is the main feature of an electric bike. So you can ride it as a regular bike with the motor turned off. Once you turn the motor on, when you pedal, the motor kicks in to give you an extra boost. The feeling is not unlike when you're riding your bicycle and somebody grabs you by the back and pushes you forward. And in fact, it can be a little bit startling if you have 0 experience riding these things. They accelerate pretty fast. You get that adrenaline rush when the motor kicks in. Let's talk about range for a second. That is the #1 question I get asked whenever I post pictures of myself riding this thing. So if you were to be completely lazy and not help this thing along at all, and by that I mean just using the throttle to move forward, relying entirely on battery power, this thing will run for about 25 miles or so. So that's what, roughly 35 kilometers, give or take. Now, if you're actually pedaling along, you're looking more like 45 miles or in the neighborhood of like 65, 70 kilometers. Now, it's really hard to estimate range because riding conditions are going to change, right? How many hills you're taking on and how heavy you are, all of these things factor in. But suffice to say, you can ride this thing for a very long time. You will likely get tired, regardless of whether you're using pedal assist or not, much sooner than the battery will die. I've ridden this thing quite literally all day long. It's a beast. It's in fact by far the most reliable electric vehicle that I own in regards to range. I know that I can get anywhere in back with this thing, and worst comes to worst, if the battery dies, unlike the scooter or an electric skateboard, I can actually ride this thing as a regular bike. Now, in regards to riding this thing, I can honestly say it has become a lifestyle thing for me. I get up and I have to ride this thing in, well, anywhere that I can. Right now, I'm in Fish Creek Park in Calgary, Alberta. It's one of my favorite places to ride. It's really close to where I live. And after I had some time to ride this thing, I think I have a pretty clear understanding of what I like about it so much. First of all, the speed. Now, I think the most common misconception about electric bikes is that somebody gets them so that they don't have to pedal, but that's not quite very accurate. And if you've ever seen anybody riding these things out, you know that. We can sometimes use just the throttle to kind of coast through a more difficult part of your ride, especially if you're getting a little bit tired, but you will find that the temptation to pedal is really hard to fight against, because when you have the pedal assist and you're giving it your all, you're going really fast and really far. I enjoy that. So honestly, you end up doing about as much exercise if you want to as you would with the regular bike. The difference is you can just go much faster, much further. An e-bike is also about the safest electric vehicle you can ride. It's definitely the one with the most forgiving learning curve. If you know how to ride a bike, you know how to ride this thing, except for, you know, what I mentioned earlier about feeling like you're being pushed from behind when the throttle kicks in. That part takes some getting used to. But everything else is just like riding a bike, which makes it for a much easier transition. Riding a scooter, in contrast, is a different kind of skill set. Another way in which this thing is very versatile is the fact that you can pop out the battery, which makes charging much easier because you can, for instance, leave the bike in your trunk and bring home just this thing to charge. Unlike, say, my scooters, which need to be brought back into the house to charge every single time. This saves a lot of time and work. Honestly, the best way to describe what it's like to ride an electric bike is, how about this? You know that feeling you got when you're a kid? It's starting to rain, by the way. When you were a kid, and you hit that part of your bike ride where it's downhill and you're just enjoying yourself, feeling that wind in your face, white knuckling as you're speeding down the hill. That's kind of what it feels like. If you want to, like I said, if you're the kind of person who enjoys the speed, this is definitely for you, I would say. It feels like your entire ride is downhill. I should probably wrap things up because it's starting to rain. In conclusion, the Cheetah by Ecotric is a phenomenal e-bike. I fell in love with it completely. As you guys know, I am leaving Canada in about 2-3 weeks. I'll be relocating down to my home country of Brazil, and unfortunately I won't be able to bring this thing with me because traveling with electric vehicles is not exactly super easy. But what I'm trying to say is that I need to get an electric bike when I get down there. Like, stat priority. I thought I loved electric scooters, but this thing is a whole other deal. The wheels are bigger, so it's a much safer ride. I can much easier let go of the handlebars to address something, like to change something in the GPS when I'm riding or something like that. With the scooter, is far more dangerous to let go of the handlebar. The wheels deal better with certain conditions like mud and wet grass, far better than a scooter. Like, suffice to say, this thing is far safer than a scooter. In conclusion, I think you should buy this thing. Not this one, I'm not selling it, but you should buy one. It's amazing. Anyway, let me know in the comments down below what you think. That's all the time I have for today. I'm Izzy, and I'm about to get rained on, I think.